A shiny but relatively worthless coin falls inconspicuously from the purse of an elderly woman. You're minding your own business when all of a sudden you feel an urge to look at the ground somewhere in the distance, and there you find it. The coin is rolling towards you as if to call out your name. You forget that you're in a busy street, that you haven't eaten in days, and that you are physically exhausted, yet you leap on this coin with all the lust of a starving lion pouncing on a gazelle. You are a Meowth, the Scratch Cat Pokémon. People in this world can become addicted and obsessed. In this episode, I will discuss the neuropsychology underpinning obsession and compulsion. Naturally, people can be obsessed by different things. Perhaps Meowth is like people in this regard. According to the Pokédex, Meowth from Kanto are completely obsessed with shiny objects, especially if they are round. Allegedly, the coin on their forehead and their eyes will both shine brightly if the sight of a shiny object arouses Meowth. They are territorial and nocturnal. Their eyes can be spotted glowing at night as they patrol their territory, which consists of all the treasures they've accumulated. Meowth can often be seen cleaning the coin on their forehead. Also, Cantonian Meowth are sworn enemies of Murkrow, and they don't even like Galarian Meowth. Speaking of regional forms, there's also a form not indigenous to Alola that has become feral there. Did you know? When Meowth Gigantamax, the patterns that appear on the enlarged coin could hold the secret of the Dynamax phenomenon. Considering the great lengths Meowth will go to protect their loot, one has to ask, why are they so obsessed with shiny objects? In fact, what causes obsession in the first place? Before I can explain what causes obsession, and yes, I will get to obsessive compulsive disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder, we need to first understand what drives behavior in the brain. Deep in the midbrain sits an important network of neurons called the ventral tegmental area, or VTA. It is the engine room of motivation. When it fires, it sends signals to different parts of the brain, the hippocampus, where memories are built and maintained, the amygdala, where those memories are colored with emotions, and where decisions are formed. In short, if you can influence how the ventral tegmental area, or the VTA, interacts with the rest of the brain, you can influence your behavior. Enter dopamine. Dopamine is simply a molecule, no more mystical than carbon dioxide or water, yet it has a profound significance in psychology. It modulates motivation and anticipation, kind of like that playful friend who would say, "Go on then." The route dopamine takes as it goes from the VTA to the hippocampus to the amygdala to other places in the brain is called the mesolimbic pathway. This pathway is the biological motorway behind craving, reward seeking, learning, and, as we'll soon see, the beginning of obsession. When people think about where dopamine is in the brain, it's normally the mesolimbic pathway. It helps generate motivation. It teaches us what is worth pursuing. And it reinforces behavior by releasing dopamine at just the right moment. When you do something enjoyable like eating your favorite food, that pathway lights up and your brain is like, excellent, do that again. This is how habits form. But it's also how addictions and obsessions take root. When you repeatedly complete a habit or perform some activity that satisfies a craving or in response to an obsessive thought, the underlying circuitry behind those actions become more and more efficient at firing. This results in a process known as sensitization, which is when those same circuitry become more responsive to the same cues. So now, a similar sized cue that would have triggered a normal response in the past could trigger a colossal psychological response in the future. So this is how it becomes harder and harder to get out of a cycle. Practice makes permanent, as it were. Obsessions are intrusive, undesirable thoughts that provoke compulsive behaviors. In obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, these compulsions only offer a moment of relief before the obsessions come back even stronger. It's kind of like trying to hew away a piggy with a breadstick. OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, works differently. Anxiety rises when a person's internal standard of perfection isn't met. Some people even imagine OCPD could help them lock in to complete a project with laser focus. Of course, what they really want is to be organized, disciplined, detail-oriented, not the painful pedantry or rigid joylessness that comes with making sure everything is as orderly as feasibly possible. Just under 5% of people experience OCD, and it's one of the most debilitating conditions known, ranked amongst cancer and dementia in terms of its daily impact. Why is this? It's because obsessive thoughts hijack the brain's processing power, driving away any essential thoughts that need to be made. It's like you're checking the oven for the 50th time and you don't realize that as a result of that, you are spectacularly late for work. Okay, but weren't we talking about Meowth a while ago? Some of the more peculiar traits Meowth possess are their uncanny stealth and their unsettling ability to reason almost like humans. In their evolutionary history, it would seem like natural selection repeatedly favored those genes that expressed more OCD-like and OCPD-like tendencies. As their brains developed, one structure grew out of proportion. This structure, known as the striatum, resulted in stronger habit circuits, a heightened sensitivity to things that are shiny, and a tendency towards ritualistic behavior. At some point, a subgroup of these Meowths began evolving shiny head crests. These individuals would receive more attention from mates, more grooming, and more social status. Before long, Meowth started to collect and polish things that looked like their shiny headdress. What began as grooming slowly turned into hoarding. From there, the species developed kleptomania. Natural selection rewarded those Meowth that could quietly sneak into another Meowth space and snatch their treasures. So, they developed retractable claws. As the arms race for shinier loot intensified, Meowth became increasingly more cunning and solitary. Yet, Meowth became more cunning so that they could outsmart rivals and steal their loot so that they could impress other maids. The Meowth courtship ritual is frankly spectacular. You may remember the mythical tale of the Meowth who learned an entire human language to impress a mate. Charming? Yes. Utterly impractical? Also yes. In reality, most Meowth do something that is much less impressive. A courting male will climb the tallest rock, position himself perfectly underneath the glow of the setting sun, and begin to recite vocalizations with the earnestness of a poet laureate delivering his magnum opus to the heavens. He will do this not once, not twice, but nightly for several weeks to an audience of precisely 0. Eventually, by sheer chance, a female may walk past. Even then, the odds are stacked against him. He might proudly present the treasures he has acquired over the years, meticulously polished, obsessively curated. But the female could just cursorily give it a glance and walk by nonchalantly. This rejection can trigger a spiral. Anxiety sets in, depression follows, and the Meowth becomes increasingly more desperate. Many throw themselves into even more frantic treasure hunting to the point of forgetting to eat. The irony is painful. The more deprived he becomes, the less likely he is to attract a male, regardless of how dazzling his treasure is or how well groomed he becomes. Poor Meowth. Actually, he's rich because of all the treasure he's accumulated. Money doesn't buy happiness, of course, or more precisely, up to a certain extent. If only Meowth had worked in moderation, then maybe their species wouldn't be nearly extinct in the wild. Meowth are nearly extinct? Well, if humans hadn't bred them excessively and released a lot of them back into the wild, then yes, by reasonable approximation. I have OCD. You do? Yeah, look. Orange colored details on my shirt, see? Those are yellow. Huh! That is disrespectful to the color yellow. Actual OCD, the one I'll be mentioning in the video, is a serious issue. Are you sure you don't have OCD? You're always obsessing about every small detail. First of all, you can't tell if someone has OCD for sure by observation alone. Even if they're washing their hands for half an hour, unless the person is professionally diagnosed, there is always the possibility it could be something else. The difference between someone with and without OCD can oftentimes correspond with the threshold of anxiety with respect to certain decisions. So, you're trying to tell me you have OCD. I think you're clearly telling me you're not paying attention. Whoa, Professor, sorry, I'll do better next time. Starting now, actually. Okay? So, you're trying to tell me that people with OCD experience higher levels of anxiety? Oh, yes, indeed. However, it's not the end for those with OCD. They can take medications or try and suppress their symptoms, which is counterproductive, but an effective method is cognitive behavioral therapy. If they learn to experience their anxiety in its fullest intensity, wait, is that ethical? Like, you're going to tell someone who thinks they're gonna die if they do X instead of Y to go ahead and do X. Well, it's a gradual process. It's important to understand that nothing genuinely dangerous happens. Nobody has ever dropped dead because they got out of bed with the wrong foot first. By helping them experience that anxiety without performing the ritual, the brain relearns what is actually safe. Over time, with support, medication when needed, and lifestyle adjustments, the compulsions lose their grip. Well, speaking of losing grip, I need to hit the gym. Definitely not obsessed with doing that. Meowth are an extremely popular species of Pokémon. People all over the world keep them as pets, even though they are notoriously difficult to handle. Unless Meowth are properly trained, they will sneak out of the house at night to try and steal anything they can find from shops that have lights still on inside. As a result, many shops simply don't open at night anymore, or they install Berserker right outside the doors to ward off any possible horde. Thankfully, much of the world with large populations of Meowth use digital currencies. Still, there are many people who would buy coins to be used to reinforce certain behaviors in Meowth. So the problem of stray Meowth has not been completely eliminated. Some cities have passed laws that state that a person must hold a license to own a Meowth. And if that Meowth commits a crime, then the owner would have their license revoked and the owner would have to pay a fine. Meowth's obsessions start from their enlarged striatum, forming the structural basis for their compulsive behaviors. Their mesolimbic pathways become increasingly more sensitized to shiny cues, fueling their insatiable urge to seek, steal, and stockpile anything that glitters. Speaking of stockpiling, there is another Pokémon that is famous for its ability to do just that.